Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us for this very important discussions about the 2020 elections. My name is Patricia Perez, and I serve as AARP California State President. And thank you so much for being here. Actually, we wouldn't be here if it weren't for AARP, who has been working diligently with local elected officials to make sure that we all know how to vote safely and know our options. Whether it is to vote early, how to do it safely from home, and really anything that you have. If you have any questions, please make sure to write them in the comments section. We're here to answer those questions, so you can start writing them in anytime. The coronavirus has put many things on hold for us. Our life has turned upside down, but one thing that is moving forward is the 2020 election. And so we're here to be able to do so safely. Joining us for this important conversation, we have two important people, and let me tell you a little bit about them. One of them is the Honorable Alex Padilla, Secretary of State for California. And Secretary Padilla is responsible for the State Elections Division, which oversees all federal and state elections within California. As the Chief Elections Officer, the California Secretary of State tests and approves all voting equipment for security, accuracy, reliability, and accessibility to ensure that every vote is counted. We also have with us today is California Department of Aging Director Kim McCoy-Wade. The California Department of Aging's mission is to promote the independence and well-being of older adults, adults with disabilities, and families through programs and services throughout the state. Thank you so much, both of you, for being here. Both of our panelists I mentioned are here to inform us about our voting options, how we can do so safely, what we need to consider for older adults, and answer any questions you have. Once again, if you have any question, please include them in the comments section. But we'll begin with Secretary Padilla. Due to the coronavirus, there have been changes regarding voting procedures. Can you tell us about Vote Safe California and provide some background on the steps your office has taken to ensure Californians are able to vote safely during this unprecedented crisis?
Of course, and thank you, Patricia and AARP, for this opportunity to be with all of you and share this very important information. We know that every election is important, and elections officials at the state and at the local level record every election to make sure that elections are as accessible as possible for every eligible voter, and of course are as secure as possible. We've heard a lot in recent years about the security of our elections. But with the COVID-19 pandemic, we also have to make sure that the opportunities for voting are safe and healthy for both voters and election workers. So we are going to be conducting things a little bit differently this November. And I'll talk you through what the various options are for voters to cast their ballot. Starting with vote by mail. We know vote by mail has been very popular for many years in California. More than 70% of the ballots cast in the primary this year were vote by mail ballots. And so we want to build on that. We've decided to send every active registered voter a vote by mail ballot for this election. As a matter of fact, yesterday was the deadline for counties to send out vote by mail ballots to every voter in the state. So if you haven't received yours yet, keep an eye on your mailbox because it's coming any day now. When you receive your ballot, you fill it out at your leisure, and you do have multiple options for how to return your ballot. I know the post office has been in the news lately, but I still think it's a reliable way to return your ballot through the mail. You don't even need stamps because return postage is prepaid. When you fill out your ballot, remember to put it in the official return envelope, seal the envelope, and sign and date the envelope as well. It's important to have your signature on that envelope as one of our security measures for vote by mail. And mail it out with plenty of time. As long as it's postmarked on or before Election Day, it can arrive up to 17 days after the election and still be counted. but obviously the sooner the better. If you prefer, you can also deliver your ballot to any ballot drop box in your county any day between now and the election, or you can deliver it in person to any in-person voting location. The choice is yours. And even though we're sending a ballot out to every active registered voter, it's not an all vote by mail only election. We have worked with counties to ensure as many safe in-person opportunities to vote for people who need that in-person option. But voting in person is going to be different, just like going to the grocery store is different. Bring your masks. Look for the signage. We'll be implementing physical distancing, plenty of hand sanitizer everywhere. Poll workers will be using all the PPE they need, the face shields, gloves, etc., to keep themselves safe and voters safe as well. So that's the general overview. A lot more details that may come up in the questions, I'm sure, but I think I can end with a couple of things. Number one, just make your plan now. Decide how you're going to vote. Will it be by mail or will it be in person? And then the second choice or the second recommendation is however you choose to do it, whether you want to vote by mail or in person, do it early. Let's not wait till Tuesday, November 3rd. That's officially election day, but we can start thinking about it as simply the last day to vote. With so many options for voting and voting early, I think it's going to be better for voters, certainly better for administrators. Let's do what we can to try to keep those lines just a little bit shorter on November 3rd, because we are expecting a big turnout. So if you get your vote by mail ballot, fill it out, send it back with plenty of time if you can. If you vote in person, go the first day or the second day that voting locations are open. The bottom line is to make sure you vote. There's plenty of information online for questions that will come, all available at vote.ca.gov. There it is on your screen, vote.ca.gov. That's where people who haven't registered to vote or need to update their registration can do so. To verify your registration status, you can also do that at vote.ca.gov. And there's a brand new tool that we have in California called Where's My Ballot? If you go to vote.ca.gov, click on Where's My Ballot, you can sign up to get alerts either by email, by text message, or phone call on the status of your ballot through the process, both on its way to you, the voter, and when it's on the way back to the county. And imagine, Patricia, the peace of mind that you'd get when you get a confirmation message that your ballot was received and a notification when your ballot has been counted. So great for transparency, great for accountability, great for peace of mind and confidence in vote by mail.
That is fantastic. I mean, just being able to trace your ballot, that is incredible. Thank you so much for sharing that information. Now I have a question for Director McCoy-Wade. What is the California Department of Aging doing to ensure that older adults and their families can vote safely? I'm having problems hearing her.
Let me try that again. Thank you for the welcome and the patience to Secretary Perez, President Perez, and Secretary Garcia. I'm so excited. I couldn't wait to get started. I am excited to be with you all today as we kick off the very first days of voting for election season 2020, heading into November 3rd. And it's just so wonderful that despite all the challenges that are facing us, our families, our health, our communities, our country, despite all those challenges, we have even easier and safer ways to vote this year. I am so grateful for the leadership of our secretary and our state of making that the case. Now, there's so much good news here. Older adults have a long, strong, proud tradition of voting, of volunteering, of fighting for the right to vote. We have older adults who were born before women had the right to vote, before Native Americans had the right to vote, before African Americans had the right to vote. And they have fought for those rights. They have exercised those rights. They've protected those rights. So we've got a great community of voters ready to go. All we have to do is learn these new ways. And I'll tell you, I've been in California for 20 years, and I think I've done all of them. I think I have mailed. I think I have done a drop box. I think I have brought my ballot into the polling place, and I know I've pulled that lever. So it is wonderful that we have more choices than ever. And as the Secretary said, these are safe. They are secure. If you are concerned about COVID, the public health precautions, if you're concerned about flu, do get that flu shot. But those infection control protections will be there. But really, why not do it at home? Why not do it early? Here in California, some of you may know me working with AARP on our master plan for aging. What I'm calling on you today to do is have a master plan for voting. Get your plan for voting, get your pen or pencil out, put it in your calendar. Here's what your plan is to do. Now, I'm going to ask you to do a second thing. You may also know from COVID that we have been encouraging everybody to make check-in calls. Check-in calls, check on your neighbors, check on your loved ones. How are we doing? We're all staying home to stay safe, but we need to stay connected. So I want you to check in on your loved one, make a check one, and see what their voting plan is. Check in, have they gotten their ballot? Have they gotten their information? Do they have a plan? Because together we will get through this. We will help people who are used to walking down the street to that neighborhood polling place. It's going to be different this year, but there are more options. So if you have that check-in call and you make a master plan, we should be able to continue and build on the strong tradition of voter turnout in California, voter turnout by older adults, voter turnout by communities of color, voter turnout by people with disabilities, voter turnout by caregivers. All will be there at the polls to raise your voice. I do just want to lift up that there's a lot of extra guidance to make sure that people who do have disabilities have all the accessibilities, that people who may be living in senior living or nursing homes, even ones where there may not be visits yet by family and friends, still vote, still ways to vote, still ways to help you vote. People who are under guardianship, people who are conserved, still there's voter information. So really, if you have questions, if you have concerns, information from the Secretary of State and the Department of Aging and your local voter register can make sure that your voice is heard, your vote is counted. With that, I'd love to hear the questions and comments and hear from people of California so we get that voter turnout.
And speaking of voter turnout, I have a question for the Secretary of State. AARP is also working to engage with younger audiences around the importance of voting and to help ensure the availability and safety of all voting options. AARP members are being encouraged to ask their younger family and friends if they're willing to step up to the challenge and help work the polls and ensure that in-person voting is accessible and safe for all voters. Can you tell us a bit more about poll working?
Yes, and thank you for the question, because older adults have been just so great in past elections, signing up and volunteering to help assist voters who do vote in person. But we know what the public health recommendations are, right? I believe Dr. Fauci, and folks with either pre-existing conditions, older adults, other vulnerable populations are recommended to not do poll worker service. And so to the extent that you can help spread the word, once again, we've made it easy. Folks that are maybe a little bit younger, healthy, willing, and able can sign up at vote.ca.gov. If you scroll down, one of the options there is poll worker information. So individuals who are interested can submit their name, their contact information, and we'll connect them with their county. The county will then reach out and provide three very important things. Number one, training. Right? For those of you who might have worked as poll workers in the past, you got to know the rules, you got to know what you're doing. So we provide poll worker training. Second, PPE. We want to make sure poll workers are kept safe and keep voters safe. And so they'll be issued all the necessary PPE to protect themselves. And third, this is a little attractive, compensation. Poll workers do earn a stipend for their service. It does vary by county. It's usually about $100 a day. Sometimes there's a bonus for bilingual poll workers. So if some of your younger friends and family speak more than one language, they are at a premium. but we make it easy for them to sign up. Vote.ca.gov, scroll down to poll worker and sign up there.
Thank you. And Mr. Secretary, you mentioned that the ballots were in the mail already. What can someone do if they do not receive their ballot?
Very good question. So if you have not received your ballot in a couple of weeks, the first thing you could or should do is contact your county to make sure that there's not any issues. Sometimes if we move and we don't necessarily update our address with the county, they may be sending your ballot to an older address instead of your current address. So we want to contact the county, make sure they have your current address, and expedite a ballot or ballot replacement that way. The other option you have is to show up in person. Even if whether or not you receive the ballot at home, you can show up in person during the in-person voting days and vote that way.
Yeah. I have a question for Director McCoy-Wade. Many people are living in nursing homes and assisted living facilities. How can family members help them? What steps should they consider when doing so?
Absolutely. Probably the easiest, lightest touch is that check-in call to residents and check and see if they have a plan and help make a plan, because while some may be able to leave, some may not. So that voting by mail may be the right step. A couple other pieces to help. Facilities absolutely have a responsibility to help with voting, and there is guidance from our partners at Public Health and Social Services listing out that facility, that guidance. Also, given what great work everyone's doing at controlling the spread of COVID, more and more facilities are opening for outdoor visits and indoor visits in some places. So family and friends who've been missing your loved ones so much the last 6 months, now's the perfect time to go have a safe visit and have that ballot conversation. Bring your ballot and bring your favorite connection with them and really do the ballot together. So there is a time as visits are open. And last but not least, we do with the Department of Aging run the long-term care ombuds program. And ombuds are there to preserve residents' rights in facilities on a whole range of issues, including voting. So if you are having any trouble either directly reaching your resident, working with the facility, visiting your resident, your loved one who's residing in the facility, please do call the ombuds to help. That's what we're here for. We can put our number in the chat. You can also use your favorite browser to look up the long-term care ombudsman. But 1-800-231-4024 is our 24/7 line for any residential issues. And at this time of year, voting questions are welcome, and we're there to help problem solve.
Thank you so much. We have a question from a viewer, and please, if anybody has a question, just type it in the comments. The question is, I have heard people talking about voting twice, and it's even been encouraged by some elected officials. What is your recommendation for people who feel they need to mail in their ballot and go to the polling place and vote?
Look, we really do advise against that. There's no need to try to vote twice, no need to try to test the system. In California, again, you have multiple safe options for how to vote, either by mail or in person. We do have safety measures in place to guard against double voting. And if you vote by mail, when your ballot comes in, we're going to update your voter registration record immediately that you have cast a ballot. And if you try to vote in person, you will not be allowed because we already have your ballot accounted for. If you vote in person, your record is updated. And if we receive a vote by mail ballot from you afterwards, that second ballot will not be counted. So we do have protocols in place to protect against double voting. We do not advise double voting. It's not allowed. It's against the law, frankly. So be wary of any officials that are recommending that. But if you're really driven by a question of whether or not your ballot was received and counted, please, you sign up or request assistance in signing up for Where's My Ballot. You can receive those messages by email, by text, or by phone call on the status of your ballot, including confirmation when your ballot has been received and when it's been counted, because we want you to have confidence in the voting process, and we want you to have peace of mind.
Absolutely. We have a second question. How will I know my vote has been received and recorded by the Register of Voters?
So again, we do have already sort of after the fact ways of finding out. If you go to vote.ca.gov under voter status, you can see when you voted in recent elections, confirming your ballot was counted. But this Where's My Ballot tool is new for all voters in the state of California, where you can get real-time confirmation that your ballot was received and counted. So about 1.5 million people have already signed up. So that's a great start, but a lot more people that haven't yet. So go to vote.ca.gov, click on Where's My Ballot. It takes just a couple of minutes, and it's so easy to use.
Perfect. A question from a viewer, and how can I check if my signature is up to date, and how can I update it if needed?
That's a very good question. So I guess if you have voted by mail in recent elections, you can go to vote.ca.gov, click on voter status. In addition to being able to review your voter record, your address, your political party preference, etc., it does give you recent history on whether your vote by mail ballot was received and counted, and if not, why not? So if you see signature issue on previous elections, you know that you have something to correct. But if not, then you're probably fine. It's another value of Where's My Ballot? You know, by law in California, if a voter forgets to sign the vote by mail envelope, or the signatures don't exactly match, because I know sometimes signatures change over time, the county is required to contact the voter to address that signature issue, because we want to make sure your vote is counted. And so if you get a phone call or an email from the county after the election, you probably want to respond to that. We're going to give you a chance to update your signature if necessary, so that your vote is counted. But if you don't hear from the county, it means you're probably okay.
Good. Once again, a reminder, we're here to answer your questions. If you have any questions, please write them in on the comments. We'd love to get to as many as possible. And here's a question. How old do you have to be to serve as a poll worker?
Very good question. You know, we all voters, of course, are eligible to serve as poll workers. We do allow young people to serve as poll workers. 16 and 17-year-olds can participate in what we call our student poll worker program. With the permission of their school and with the permission of their parents, 16 and 17-year-olds can also work as poll workers in their county. And of course, any adult 18 years or older registered in California are eligible to serve as poll workers.
Thank you. Will there be hand washing stations at voting centers or just sanitizers?
So, well, I think there's probably going to be hand washing stations in many voting locations because, of course, restrooms are important for voters and poll workers who are putting in that long day. Separate hand washing stations, in some places there will be, but maybe not in all. But all will be required to have plenty of hand sanitizer available, gloves for workers and maybe voters who need them. We're encouraging people to bring their face masks, but if you forget yours, we'll have extras on site. All the public health guidance and directives are being implemented at in-person voting locations.
Thank you. How about for those voters who do not have access to computers? How can they check on the status of their ballot so they know where it is?
Yeah, very good question. So if you can get help in signing up for Where's My Ballot from somebody, you can choose to receive the alerts by phone call, by text message or by phone call. Again, the status of your ballot when it's on its way to you, when it's on its way back to the county. You can also call our voter hotline. 1-800-345-VOTE is the Secretary of State voter hotline. Most counties have their own voter hotline at the local level. And so multiple options for you to talk to elections officials for any assistance that you might need.
Yes. For people who are, here's a question. If you're going to vote in person, do you have to bring the ballot that was mailed to you? I mean, is that true?
So if you choose to vote in person, it is helpful if you bring the ballot that was mailed to you, but it is not required. If you come in and vote in person, Again, we'll note on your record that you voted in person, and whatever ballot you received in the mail will be voided, so it will not count if you vote in person. But it's helpful if you bring it just as a safety measure.
Okay. I know these are very uncertain times and people have lots of questions. What should I do if I suspect fraud in the voting system?
Okay. And look, we do take voter fraud seriously. The good news is voter fraud is extremely rare across the country, same in California, and same when it comes to vote by mail, despite what you may be hearing from other sources. But if you have reason to suspect something inappropriate is happening, you can also call our voter hotline to report it, 1-800-345-VOTE. All that we ask is that you share whatever information you can to be more specific about your concern. There's some people who say, well, I hear this, or I think maybe that. We can't really look into or investigate hypothetical scenarios. If there's something specific that concerns you, feel free to report it at 1-800-345-VOTE.
President Perez, can I speak to another aspect of that, which is while our voting system is safe and secure, unfortunately, AARP and we know all too well that there are people who do prey on older adults and try to commit fraud on them, whether it's around the census, whether it's around tax time, whether it's around voting. So if anyone receives a call or a text that says it has to do with voting, but you're just not sure, you don't have to give information or take that inbound call, right? We know that from AARP's fraud tips. You can hang up, and if you have questions, you make the outbound call. You check the website. You call your local registrar, or you call the resources the secretary has shared. So again, that's not voter fraud. That's good old-fashioned fraud,
Right.
trying to take advantage of voting season. And we know older adults have to be, and their loved ones have to be vigilant about that. So again, don't give out information over the phone that you're not comfortable. That's not part of voting, just like it's not part of taxes or the census or anything else that we do in partnership. So just remember those best practices. And of course, AARP has a wonderful fraud hotline, multilingual. That is a great resource to older Californians and older Americans with any questions.
And along the same lines, Patrice, a reminder, you do not have to pay anything to exercise your right to vote. So if anybody's communicating to you about voting or assisting you with being able to vote and asking for a contribution or a donation or financial information, disregard it. You do not have to spend money to vote in the United States of America. The other thing I should mention in this concern about potential fraud or inappropriate behavior, I've walked through all the options for being able to return your ballot on your own. In California, we do empower voters to decide for themselves how to return their ballot. And even if they need assistance in returning their ballot, that is your choice. Nobody can force you to surrender your ballot to them. But if you choose to get assistance, you have the liberty to decide for yourself who you trust to return your ballot for you if necessary. It could be a family member, it could be a friend, it could be a neighbor. The choice is yours, but we've made it as easy as possible with all the options, returning it by mail, drop boxes, or at any in-person voting location. And if you choose to have somebody return it for you, then they have to sign that vote by mail envelope as well.
Perfect. And speaking of right to vote, Director McCoy-Wade, how can people living in an assisted living facility or nursing home, how can they cast their vote?
It's the same way. It's the same way. You can vote by mail, as Secretary Padilla said, with your ballot. If you didn't get a ballot, maybe you moved or that address isn't on, again, you can request a ballot. You can do all the resources that have, just because you live in a residential facility or nursing home does not change your right to vote, is the bottom line. It may be because of health conditions that mail is the best option for you, or having a friend or family or ombuds person or a trusted staff member drop it off. Those, as Secretary Padilla said, those are options. So again, it's really about making a plan, picking the one that's best for you, knowing you have new and different choices, but hopefully it's easier than ever, even though it's new.
Thank you. We have another question, and people are concerned to make sure that that everything is safe and secure, and of course, fraud-free. How do they check my signature?
Good question. And so, again, reminder, when you vote by mail, regardless of how you return your vote by mail ballot, the voter has to seal, sign, and date the outside of the envelope. And the very first thing county officials do when those envelopes arrive is compare the signature on the envelope with the signature that we have on file as part of your voter registration record. For some people, it could be that form they signed a long time ago when they first registered to vote. For many other voters, it's an updated signature from the last time you might have renewed your driver's license or your state ID. So whatever the most recent signature that we have on file for you as part of your voter registration record, that's what we compare it to. And again, if you forget to sign, the county will contact you to obtain your signature so we can count your ballot. If there's not an initial match determined at first review, there's multiple reviews by county officials. Your ballot is never disqualified by a machine. If anything, it may go to a supervisor or a manager or the registrar of voters themselves to make a determination. And if after multiple reviews they say they still think the signatures aren't matching, the county will contact you to update your signature.
Thank you. And reminder, please ask your questions in the comments. And we have another one is, what happens to a ballot that went to an old address?
So if a ballot goes to an old address, it cannot be forwarded to your new address, even if you have forwarding service with the Postal Service. Those ballots, more often than not, are simply returned to the county as non-deliverable. So again, it's a good idea if you can to either call your county to verify your registration status, or you can do it online. If you see that your voter registration record is outdated, you can update it online, and we encourage you to try to do that the sooner rather than later, so your county can get your ballot at your current address.
You know, and right now with everything going on, either because of COVID or because of the fires, people have moved around. How do they ensure that they're still able to vote?
Right. So again, multiple options for how to vote. If you are temporarily displaced because of the fires or living somewhere other than your home because of COVID or for any other reason, remember, when you register to vote, you can actually submit two addresses. The first is your registration address, right? Where do you reside? Where is home? You have the option of entering a separate mailing address. You know, we need your registration address to determine which congressional district you live in, which legislative districts you live in, which, you know, all the different jurisdictions. But some people choose to get their mail somewhere other than their residence. And you have that option, especially if you're displaced for the time being. If you need to re-register to a new residential address, again, you can do that on paper, or you can do it online pretty easily at vote.ca.gov. And if after all of that, we still missed the registration deadline, which is October 19th, you can show up in person and register to vote or update your registration and still cast your ballot.
Thank you. And people are very concerned about those living in assisted living facilities. And how can I make sure a relative in a nursing home facility votes?
Call, check in, and make that plan. I think if you can, you know, get back in for a visit, as facilities are starting to do that more and more safely, whether outdoor or indoor. That's a great idea anyway. People are needing that human connection, and bring the ballot book along, check with them, and really help them, be their advocate. As the secretary said, that kind of assistance is allowable, appropriate, and legal, and you know, welcome, to make sure everyone can exercise their right to vote. So have those conversations, request the ballot if needed, take it back for them if they would like with your signature. One thing I also wanted to point out, of course, is people in facilities are both our elders and also people with disabilities. And so we want to also, Secretary Padilla, perhaps we want to talk about some of the wonderful accessibility options in terms of remote accessibility voting as well, so that people can have ballots in technologies that are accessible to them. So there really are multiple ways, multiple doors. The biggest thing is taking the time to have a plan. Just like you have to have a plan to get your mask, and get your groceries. We're doing things differently right now. It's doable. You can do it. There's help for you, but you got to make that plan.
Yeah, no, it's a great reminder, Kim. Just as you spoke so eloquently earlier about the evolution of our right to vote, right? Regardless of gender, regardless of race or ethnicity, any eligible voter has the right to vote, regardless of accessibility. And so we know, most people do know that in-person voting locations have to meet our accessibility requirements in federal and state law. But with the increasing popularity of vote by mail, California is one of the pioneers on remote accessible vote by mail. And we can make accommodations. Just need you to reach out to your county to request a remote accessible vote by mail system so that you can still continue to vote privately and independently from the comfort of home if that is your choice. And so as you're receiving voting materials, how to contact your county elections office is on those letters. It's in those booklets, or you can go to vote.ca.gov. We do have a listing there, a directory of the county elections office for all 58 counties in the state.
And the other thing, if I may say, Secretary Padilla, the language access is wonderful too. Can you talk about some of the work you've done to ensure that all diverse Californians can get information and vote in the languages that they're comfortable with?
Of course, we're not just the most populous, diverse state in the nation. We have the largest number of voters of any state in the nation that reflects the diversity. And so both by federal law, there's a number of languages that election materials and ballot materials are available in. So the voter can decide what language they prefer to receive their materials, including their ballot. We actually go a step above that, utilizing some census information and academic research in California, county by county, augmenting which languages those materials are available in. So you do have that preference. When you register to vote, that's one of the options, your preferred language, if it's a language other than English, and you can update that at any time.
Thank you. Here in California, we're already seeing voting taking place in other states. What is California doing to avoid the long lines when voting?
So we're encouraging people to vote early if you can, to try to keep those lines a little bit shorter on election day. Ballots started going out in some counties last week. So some ballots are starting to come back by mail already. Ballot drop boxes are installed in every county, and people are starting to deliver ballots to drop boxes. If you're really eager and want to vote in person, you can actually go now to your county elections office and vote in person any day between now and the election. But a lot of the in-person early voting locations that are going to be more widespread throughout the states depends on the county. Many are opening voting locations starting on Friday, October 30th. And so you'll be able to vote Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, or Tuesday, election day, with a few locations in some counties opening up even earlier than that. So you can vote by mail, you can go in person to your county elections office, or you can vote during the early voting period. But yes, voting early is going to be helpful, not just for voters, but for election workers as well.
Thank you. And just in case there are lines, will there be any separate lines for people over 50?
There may or may not be. They're not required, but many counties and many specific polling locations do have that extra customer service for voters who need it. But it's a good reminder to try to avoid those lines, try to avoid those wait times by voting early if you can.
Yes, and people are very concerned about safety. Are the machines going to be cleaned after each use?
Oh, yes. Part of the public health protocols that we have at every voting location, I mentioned the obvious ones, the physical distancing, the masks and sanitizer. We do have protocols to clean and sanitize the facilities themselves, and including the voting equipment between every voter. So we're following all those recommended best practices to keep voters and election workers safe.
Thank you. You know, this discussion has been incredibly helpful, and it looks like we're coming to the, end of our conversation. Thank you so much, Secretary of State Padilla and California Department of Aging Director McCoy Wade for participating. Do you have final comments? I'll first open it up to Director McCoy Wade.
Well, I already knew I was going to make a plan, but now hearing the secretary, I'm going to vote early. And I know that older Californians have been going early. There's the grocery store. We know that's how we stay safe. So I think tomorrow night, I'm going to sit down with my ballot guide and my ballot, watch the vice president debate, and cast my vote. So thank you for getting me not just to make a plan, but to do it early. Thank you so much.
How about you, Mr. Secretary? Would you like to have some final comments?
Sure. Well, again, a big thank you to you and AARP for convening us, and really my compliments to Director McCoy Wade for joining us on this panel, but for all the work that CDA does on behalf of older adults throughout California, throughout the course of the year. Right, you're hearing from me because there's an election coming up, but what the department does for older adults is so important in all aspects, from health and housing and social services, etc. So for all the folks that are watching, know that California has your back. We're trying to be as helpful and supportive as possible, especially during these trying times. We covered a lot of information here today. I guess the only two things I would say in closing. Three things. Number one, continue to stay safe. Keep wearing those masks. Keep washing those hands. We will get through this together. Number two, you've heard it repeatedly. Make a plan on how you're going to vote, and vote early if at all possible. And number three, just a reminder, if I don't know how many more reasons we can realize why it's important to vote this November. 2020 just keeps on giving more and more challenges on top of the ones that we entered the year with. So if you're concerned about healthcare, vote. If you're concerned about affordable housing, vote. If you're concerned about the education of your children and your grandchildren, vote. If you're concerned about the environment or safety in our communities, vote. But the important thing is to vote and make your voice heard in the election.
Thank you so much. And thank you to everyone who joined us today. I want to remind you that our websites are aarp.org/CA votes, o en español, aarp.org/CA vota. And for information in Spanish, and visit powerthepolls.org/AARP to find out how to be a poll worker in your community. Thank you so much to everyone for joining us. Thank you so much, Director McCoy Wade and Secretary Alex Padilla. And I wish you, a safe voting season. And please, everybody, cast your ballot. Thank you very much.
Thank you.